What's up, y'all? After a brief 1 month hiatus, we are back with another episode this week. We are on episode 21 now. We have the advantage of having a ton to talk about now, being off for a month. We're going to dive into the college football playoff now that the teams have taken shape and we have an idea of what the matchups are going to be. Definitely want to dive into that. We'll talk a little bit about some bowl games that we like too. Some big moves are being made across college football, especially in the coaching carousel. So we will talk about the biggest name. MLB Winter Meetings have just about wrapped up. So we are going to dive into some of the biggest storylines there. NFL playoffs are starting to take shape. So we want to talk a little bit about like who we like so far in this season, who we think some of the Super Bowl favorites are. And of course, you can't talk about the NFL without talking about Dan Campbell. And then we will dive into some NBA talk. And maybe we each pick a couple teams that have surprised us, both good and bad so far, almost halfway through the season at this point. So as usual, plenty to talk about. But, you know, since we took a hiatus, we definitely have more to dive into for this episode. So let's roll in, y'all.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I think the last time we recorded was heading into the Washington Commanders Chicago Bears game. So the Hail Mary not only killed the Bears, but it killed our podcast too. And I think we finally just whipped up the courage to be able to come on here and face the music. But holy cow, has a lot of stuff changed since then. But we'll dive all into that here and sticking with football, but maybe in a different level here. College football playoff. First time we've had a 12-team bracket, and now this is live, and we have the bracket structure here. So I'll kind of just run through all the matchups we have first, and then we can kind of talk about that a little bit. So the way it works is obviously, if those who don't know, I'm sure most people do, the top four seeds all got a bye. Some of those were teams that won their conference. Other were just given a top seed. So those four are Georgia, who won the SEC, Boise, who won their conference, Oregon, who won the Big Ten, and Arizona State, who also won their conference. So actually, it was everyone that won their conference got a bye, not just some.
Yeah, that's how it had to be.
So looking at matchups here, we got number 12 Clemson at number 5 Texas, number 9 Tennessee at number 8 Ohio State, number 11 SMU at number 6 Penn State, and number 10 Indiana at number 7 Notre Dame. Kevin, your thoughts on the first 12-team playoff bracket? Did they get it right? Do you like these matchups? What do you think?
Yeah, I think they got it right. I like that they put SMU in instead of Alabama. Alabama's just got some really poor losses this year. SMU's been playing some really good ball. And I think it brings kind of like an excitement factor. People are tired of watching Alabama compete for championships. So I think TV ratings definitely played a factor here. I think they need to get rid of the automated first round bye when teams win their conference, because I think they just need to do like the top 12 teams and just more so like a free for all, because I think there are some teams who are worthy of having a bye, and then there's teams who maybe not so much. So I thought that part could use some work where, you know, top 12 teams just make it in, and then it's just, you know, purely seedings. But I think it's going to be a really exciting and unpredictable college football playoff, because I really don't feel like, with the exception of maybe Oregon, there's a clear favorite of a team who just really could run away with this.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in terms of the overall structure of it. And I think what would be nice is just, hey, take your top 4 seeds, give them a bye. Don't worry about conference, whatever. Like, just give them a bye. And that would shake things up quite a bit. But obviously the teams that like Arizona State and Boise State and even Georgia, for an example, Georgia looked dead for a while. Like they took care of
Yeah.
business and they earned an opportunity to have a bye. So good for them. But I think there's some interesting matchups. I will say I think Texas got really lucky.
Yeah.
Not to knock Arizona State or anything they've done this year. They're obviously a good football team. But when you have Texas hosting Clemson and then having a chance to play Arizona State on a neutral site, not that that would make a huge difference because Texas has a much better atmosphere at home. I just feel like that's almost like giving them a bye to the semifinal versus a team like Oregon, who from week one till now was the number one team in college football. I think they were ranked number one that whole time. Maybe there was a couple of weeks where they weren't. And what do they get in return? They get the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State. So
Yeah.
that's kind of flawed a little bit in my opinion. But then, I love like SMU and Penn State. I love that matchup. And probably my favorite matchup of all the first round games is Indiana and Notre Dame for the whole in-state factor. I think that's going to be super, super cool. You're going to have the whole big brother, little brother thing going on between the fans and the players and stuff. And speaking about favorable draws, Georgia, who knows what's going to happen with Carson Beck? I believe his injury is going to be longer term. He might not be playing in these playoffs. Don't quote me on that, but I did see there was like ligament issues, I believe. So you look at a team like Indiana or Notre Dame, they might be able to knock off Georgia. So
Dude, Georgia might be better without Carson without Carson Beck. Like honestly, he's been so poor this year. I don't know too much
he's
about
played
their
better.
backup, but
He's played better the last few weeks, but overall, I mean, they just did not look nearly as good as they should have for most of the year, and a lot of that had to do with his play. But I mean, I think it's going to be fun. I know I will not be doing anything December 20th and December 21st. I'll be watching all those first round games. So if anyone needs me, don't. But looking forward to it. And you know what? I think this is good. I think that it's funny too because everyone wanted an expanded playoff and now everyone's complaining. So there's going to be people like that no matter what. But I do think eventually we're going to get to a point where this gets expanded again. I think that a lot of revenue is going to come in. This is going to be really good for college football. And I think we're looking at maybe just a temporary structure and that this is going to look different a few years from now.
I think so too. And honestly, like that's kind of comes with the nature, right? Like when you expand into more teams, you're going to piss off a larger population of people, whether it's because of their seating or they weren't included or, like the whole like first round bye situation, like it's going to happen. And honestly, dude, like I'll call the elephant out in the room. Like I know there was a lot of Miami fans that were pissed because they didn't make it in the end. And like, do I think that they had a small case just solely because they were the best offense in the nation? Yeah, sure. I think that for entertainment purposes, like you could have created that argument, but like, dude, they shot themselves in the foot. All we had to do was beat Syracuse and we were in. Like we did this to ourselves. That's what it boils down to. That's it. We did it to ourselves. So for all the Miami people that are talking on Twitter, like, hey guys, like we had an opportunity and we did this to ourselves. So
there's a few things that we're kind of learning with how this playoff's been the last couple of years, especially. Number one is, they do favor strength of schedule. That's something that they look at pretty closely. And for a team like Miami, even if you are the best offense this year, they did not have a strong schedule whatsoever. And you add in the 2 losses there, like that hurts a lot. And then the other thing that we're starting to realize too is I honestly forgot where I was going with this second point. I'm not going to lie.
There's a lot of SEC bias too. And like,
what?
Honestly though, like you could argue the other way around because Alabama didn't make it this year, like maybe they're actually starting to consider other factors here.
That was the other thing now that you brought it back. The other thing that this is a new thing this year. And I think it's a good thing. They're not penalizing teams for making a conference title game. And we're seeing that by SMU playing in the playoffs still. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think they should have got a shot no matter what. But still, like, it's good to see them in there. Obviously, it was pretty close because they're seeded 11th. But at least they're like, hey, we're not going to penalize them for playing a game. Because if it were up to me, I would be like, let's get one loss and let's not play a conference title game. Like I'd rather not
100%.
risk it, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Stay healthy. Let's just because we have a ton to dive into, let's make our picks for just the first round here, and then we can talk about bowl games that we think could be entertaining. All right, so first matchup we've got Clemson and Texas. What do you have? I'm gonna say Clemson, dude. I don't know why. I just think Clemson's getting hot at the right time. Cade Klubnik's looking really good right now. Texas, obviously, a great football team, but something's just telling me Clemson's going to pull off this upset. I don't know why.
Quinn Ewers has not been playing well, so
no, he hasn't. We've got Tennessee and Ohio State.
it's a tough one. It's a coin flip for me, in my opinion. I am going to go with Tennessee, though, and a big reason I'm going with Tennessee is I think we're going to see an Ohio State team that just looks defeated after the Michigan loss.
I picked Ohio State I think I picked them to win it all this year, actually. So because of that, I'll stick with Ohio State. SMU and Penn State. This is a really hard one, in my opinion, to pick. But who do you have?
It could be. I also think Penn State's playing some of the best football right now. I'm going to go with Penn State.
Yeah, and they've got a really strong defensive line. I think because of that, Penn State's going to wreak havoc a little bit, especially when it matters most. I'm going to take Penn State because of that. You saw some flashes of that with Clemson, getting through the offensive line of SMU. Penn State's defensive line is probably better than Clemson's, so I'm going to say Penn State here. Indiana, Notre Dame, the matchup that all the Midwest people are definitely going to be tuning into. Who do you have here?
Yeah, I got Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame will handle Indiana pretty well. That's granted, Indiana's a Midwest team too, but like just South Bend this time of year with a playoff game, like that's going to be a rowdy atmosphere. And I think Notre Dame's going to play a pretty good game as a result. And I think they'll spreads ND minus 7.5. I think they cover at least.
Don't quote me here, but I think they have College Game Day too.
They might. It is a Friday game though. It is the only Friday game.
Yeah, I'm going to take ND here too. I just think matchup wise, Notre Dame matches up way better against Indiana than the other way around. So
here's a little teaser. Here's a little teaser for all the people out there. A spoiler alert, I'm a week ahead. I'm going to take Notre Dame over Georgia too.
Oof. That's a statement right there.
Yeah.
And then they play SMU, Penn State, or Boise State. So yeah.
Spoiler alert to all the people out there. That's gonna be a Penn State Notre Dame semifinal for me.
Yeah, I would think so. All right, cool. Let's dive into bowl games specifically. Do you have any bowl games that you're looking forward to? I've got some that I can talk about, unless you wanted to dive into yours first.
Oh, I don't really have any off the top of my head. As a Florida fan, I was excited about the Tulane matchup till one day later their starting quarterback entered the transfer portal, which kind of soured that for me. But I believe, let's see, I'm just scrolling through here some of the games.
I like Oklahoma, the BYU and Colorado in the Alamo Bowl.
I do like that. I think BYU wins that game. I just went through and did like a free ESPN Pick'em League yesterday with bowl games. Oklahoma Navy is interesting in my opinion. I'm taking Navy.
Yeah, dude.
Texas A&M USC could be fun depending on who plays that game.
Yeah, that's the bad thing about like a lot of these games is you don't know whether or not these players are going to play, right? So like that's why for me I went with like matchups, right? So another one I highlighted is South Carolina versus Illinois in the Citrus Bowl. I think this could be honestly I think it could be a shootout. But I think it'll make for a really interesting game between the two of them. And then the last one I highlighted was Duke and Ole Miss. Now Duke's quarterback Malik
Murphy,
that's his last name. He entered the transfer portal too, so he's not going to play. I don't know who their backup is, but Ole Miss is having a really nice year. They're in the Tax Slayer Bowl. I think that's a game I'll probably tune into, but those are the three I highlighted.
I do like Miami, Iowa State, depending on Miami's situation. I doubt Cam Ward's going to play in that game, but if he does.
Dude, pause. He's telling people he's going to play.
He is, but he can tell people all he wants right now that he's going to play, but when it comes time to actually play, we'll see about that. So
I think if he does, it could be like a first half thing because like a lot of Miami people want to see Emery Williams play too. That's our backup and who could be our quarterback next year. So it could give him a playing opportunity. But yeah, I'll obviously be tuning into that one. Let's talk about the biggest storyline in college football right now before we dive into other topics. Bill Belichick, man, the new head coach of the UNC Tar Heels. What are your initial thoughts here?
I cannot believe he took that job, is thought number one.
Same.
Immediate thought number two is if he waited, he probably would have gotten an NFL job. So, in my opinion, this is going to be one thing where it is probably going to take me half of a season to get used to seeing him on the North Carolina sidelines and seeing him and just coaching college. The number one thing I think of here, Kevin, is like he's going to have to relate to like 17, 18-year-old kids, and I just cannot see him doing that. Like, what is he going to get on like Snapchat and like Instagram with these kids and like be in their live videos and like it's just going to be nuts. And it's the thing that's so interesting to me is you have one of the best NFL coaches of all time going into an era of college football where kids are getting paid millions of dollars. He's going to be like, he's going to be like, what makes you think you should get this money? Like, it's going to be fascinating seeing how it turns out. Do I think North Carolina is going to be a much better team? I do. But it's really going to be interesting just seeing how it plays out. I'm shocked.
I am too. I think his staff is going to be crucial. I don't think he's going to do a whole lot of recruiting himself. I think he's going to be like the closer. I think he's going to put a staff around himself that's like going to be really aggressive with recruiting, and that's what could make him successful. But yeah, in terms of like the NIL era, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he approaches that. Now, I heard two things. I don't know if this is true. I heard he requested a $20 million NIL package. So he has $20 million to spend on NIL purposes, which is crazy. But the other thing I heard is his buyout. Now, I think this is the way it was phrased, is his buyout goes from $10 million to $1 million in June of 2025, which sets him up to accept a head coaching job in the NFL if one comes his way. So that just tells you, like, clearly his mind is still on the NFL. And he did say today, I didn't take this job to leave. And it's like, okay, dude, but like if the right opportunity came your way in the NFL, you would for sure take that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't think we'll really know how well this works out for UNC until year 2, maybe 3. But hey, man, it's a name. It is the biggest name in football to hire for your head coach. I think a lot of recruits will flip to UNC or commit to UNC just because of the hype of it, but we'll see how it all pans out. Winter meetings. Sean, I'm going to let you take the reins on this one. I've been talking a lot about college football, so talk to me about winter meetings, and obviously a lot of money was thrown through to a lot of players. So what do you notice?
Yeah, it was winter meetings. So it's Thursday night when we're recording this. Winter meetings started technically, I think, Sunday and ended yesterday evening. So started off slow and then got off to a pretty fast finish there. And a big reason that it started off slow is everyone was waiting for the whale to sign, which was Juan Soto, and he ended up signing a 15-year, $765 million deal with the New York Mets. I always anticipated he was going to be a Met this offseason. He was always going to take the money, the most money that was given to him. I know Yankees fans are kind of upset that he has no loyalty to the Yankees, but he shouldn't. We're talking about a guy who is a first ballot Hall of Famer right now. We're talking about a guy who is 26 years old and has a ridiculous amount of MLB experience already. We might not ever see a player this talented at this age get this kind of opportunity to spend or to earn this much money at this point in their career. So for the fact that he got $765 million, I'm not surprised by that either. I don't think we'll see a hitter get that much for quite a while. I think this is pretty much a rare case here, even though we're starting to see some bigger contracts come into baseball. But, he earned the right to take the most money. So for anyone, especially Yankees fans that are pissed off and upset, like A, you probably knew this was going to happen deep down. B, his agent is Scott Boras. Why would you ever expect him to sign an extension and stay with the Yankees and not test the market? And C, like I said it before and I'll say it again, he earned the right to take the most money. So good for
Yeah.
him.
Dude, not to mention, like, when you operate like the Yankees operate, where they just throw money at players or just trade a bunch of prospects to get some of the top names, like, who is loyal to the Yankees? Like, that's not even an argument. You know what I mean? Like, the last person that's loyal to the Yankees is Derek Jeter, and he retired, God, I don't know, it probably feels like 6 or 7 years ago at this point. But um, Juan Soto is going to make money. Whoever's going to pay him and be like, okay, if it was the Miami Marlins and he was paid $765 million, I don't think he's going to go, right? But like, it had to be a good situation and a good amount of money for him to go, and the Mets were just willing to pony up and pay what needed to be paid. So, Yankee fans, just relax. At least your team pays players. You can be a White Sox fan, and then let's talk. Let's actually flip to the Yankee signing. They signed Max Fried, 8 years, $218 million. Do you think overpay, underpay, just the right amount?
It was probably a little bit of an overpay, but that's just the way baseball operates. It's hard to really, overpay anyone because everyone just gets a lot of money these days.
Yeah.
Max Fried's a good pitcher. He's a ground ball pitcher. That contract, I'm sure, will age okay. I don't think he'll like bottom out or anything like that, but it really set the table for the White Sox to be able to make their big move of the winter meetings, which we'll get into later. So, they for the Yankees, they had to address the starting rotation. That was a good way to do it. I would just be curious what Corbin Burns ends up signing for. If it's not a whole lot more than that, then I'd be like, why the hell didn't we just go get Corbin Burns? But obviously, we'll see. Corbin Burns hasn't signed yet, so leads me to believe that he's going to get a lot of money, and it's going to be a lot more than that. But yeah, Yankees filled a hole. Obviously, they're taking the money they wanted to pay Soto and using it to spread it out a little bit, which I think is a good thing too. So good move for them. I won't completely drag them on here, but yeah, it was a quick pivot for them. And I also feel like the signing came shortly after Soto signed. And I feel like for them, like they needed that. They needed a splash. They needed to make themselves look a little bit better, things like that. So,
but at the same time, like, Max Fried is no consolation prize. Like, he's a damn good pitcher, and he's going to be really nice for their pitching staff. I'd be shocked if Corbin Burns went anywhere other than the Blue Jays. And speaking of
Giants.
The Blue Jays, really?
Yeah, they're lurking too.
Interesting. Speaking of the Blue Jays, they made a really nice acquisition, dude. They acquired Andres Jimenez from the Guardians for Spencer Horwitz. And then they actually flipped Horwitz to the Pirates for 3 prospects. So a lot of moving pieces there for the Guardians, and the Blue Jays got Andres Jimenez, who, honestly, I think he's one of the more underrated players in baseball.
Yeah, he's a good player. He gives you elite defense no matter what. Contracts may be a little rough, but Toronto's been wanting to make some moves this offseason. They were one of the finalists for Juan Soto, shockingly. Also, side note too, unrelated, but back to Fried, the Athletics actually were a team that offered him a lot of money too, which was interesting. So good for them. But no, Toronto's been trying to make waves this offseason and trying to make big moves. Obviously, you mentioned Corbin Burns. They're in the mix for him. They're in the mix for Soto. Obviously, things didn't work out the way they wanted to, so they looked at other ways to improve. I think that's a good move for Cleveland. They got rid of a contract. They probably didn't want to pay a guy as much anymore. Took Spencer Howitz, who's a first baseman, second baseman, flipped him to the Pirates for 3 pitching prospects. So I was confused at first because Cleveland got a first baseman and a second baseman in Horwitz, but 2 of their top prospects play those positions. So I was like, why would they free up one just to block them with the guy they acquired? Turns out that they had other plans and just got pitching guys, which makes sense for them because that's what they do. So
yeah. Another move, honestly, I don't really like this move at all. Nathan Eovaldi, 3 years, $75 million to stay in Texas. Now, I'm going to give you his last 3 years in the MLB. He had a 3.87 ERA, 3.63, 3.80. Here's why I don't love the move. 3 years, $75 million. It's not a lot of money when you talk about guys like, obviously Juan Soto, Max Fried, but Nathan Eovaldi is going to be 35 years old in February, which means at the end of this contract, he's 38. This dude is going to start declining. I don't know how much more value you're going to get out of him, maybe even after the first year. Now, they've had success. He's pitched well for the Rangers, but honestly, I don't really love this move for them.
Yeah, I mean, another team that needed to address starting pitching. They got an expensive roster. They probably couldn't afford to be in the mix with those Corbin Burns and those Max Frieds and people like that of the world. Honestly, surprisingly, a team that wasn't in on Garrett Crochet. I thought maybe that would make sense for them to get a cheap option,
Same.
but
yeah.
They just get a guy that they're familiar with. They're comfortable paying him that money, obviously. So, you know what? They're just kind of doing what they can. They're trying to win now. So, they won 2 years ago, so they're not completely broken. So, but then obviously, they made another interesting move.
Yeah.
And traded for former White Sox prospect and White Sox player in Jake Berger. So they traded from him, got him from the Marlins for 3 prospects. One of them was a guy by the name of Max Acosta, who a handful of years ago people really thought was going to be one of the better prospects in baseball at some point, and I'm guessing he's kind of flamed out by now. But Jake Berger, man, he's netting people prospects, and was once a guy who was maybe never going to play baseball again, and now people are wanting him and acquiring him. So I like that fit for him. I think that's a good place for him to be.
Yeah, I think so too. And honestly, he's a phenomenal clubhouse guy too. You know what I mean? Like, he's always been just a really good dude. So I like that move for the Rangers. As far as baseball goes, that's about it. I mean, we are in the off season, so more signings are going to be happening, especially now that the winter meetings are happening. You'll start to see people fill some holes.
Let's
dive into NFL recap. We can make some picks for the next week too. But
yeah,
dude, this is Dan Campbell's league and Dan Campbell's league only. This guy, not only does he have the Lions, 12-1 at this point, but his post-game speeches, man, even though the Lions are in the division, like, I'm ready to run through a wall for this guy. His last one that he had, he calls out one of his linemen who's puking in the corner, and he's just making fun of the guy right as he's making a post-game speech. I'm like, dude, the world needs more Dan Campbells.
I've always said Dan Campbell will literally die in Detroit, and he will never coach another team, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, he's made to be the Lions head coach.
I mean, just real quick point on the Lions. They have looked like the best team in the NFL for months. They are just always getting it done, sitting at 12-1, which is tied for the best record in the NFL with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But
Chiefs
they look a lot better than the
12-1
Chiefs.
though.
Yeah, but they look a lot better than the Chiefs. So
yeah.
Good for them. And it is every week. He's just, whether he's going for it on 4th down, wherever he's at, or hyping up the boys in the locker room, he's always doing something to get people's attention.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's go through a couple of the other storylines, because the Thursday night game may have already started, but we'll still make a prediction. All right, so next thing lined up, Bills and Rams maybe had the game of the year this past week. It was just a shootout. I think the final, 44-42 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Josh Allen was like the only player in NFL history to have like 4 rushing touchdowns and 4 passing touchdowns in a game, or something along those lines. And they still lost, which is crazy.
It's just like Superman out there. Yeah, he had a hell of a game. He's having a great year.
MVP, in my opinion, as of right now.
Just insane.
Yeah.
Dolphins are starting to turn the corner here, take care of business. Their playoff hopes, man, it's like a week by week thing, right? Like
Yeah,
one week they look good, another week not so much. They're kind of just hanging by a thread right now.
yeah, they're 6-7. Um, just really struggled without Tua, and now they're somehow still in the mix. Not completely ruled out. It's a long shot, but they're doing what they can and hanging on by a thread here.
Yep. Talk to me about the Vikings and Kirk Cousins' return. I mean, you're close to Minnesota. Talk to me about what's going on there.
Well, Kirk got booed, which I thought was interesting.
Did he? I didn't see the start of it.
Yeah, he got booed. I didn't see that coming. And man, it was a close game early on, and then Minnesota just took it to him, and it kind of got a little ugly for old Kirko there. Pull up the box score and grab his final stats here, but the final was 42-21. Kirk took the ball downfield. They got a touchdown first drive. I was like, okay, this is going to be one of those games. And then he ended up not throwing for a passing touchdown, having 2 interceptions on the day. And the Vikings Jordan Addison was ridiculous. Sam Darnold was ridiculous that day too. And their receivers were just putting a hurting on Atlanta's secondary. And, Vikings ended up cruising to victory. They're sitting at 11-2 on the year. And I was saying this the whole time watching that game. I was like, how have they not clinched yet? This is crazy. 11-2. They still technically haven't clinched a playoff spot.
Dude, it's nuts. And they're kind of a quiet 11-2, right? Like I when I saw that a little bit ago, I was like, damn, I did not realize the Eagles were 11-2.
Well, the Eagles are 11-2 as well, but the Vikings are too.
I was looking at the Eagles box score, but yes, the Vikings are 11-2. And honestly, like, it's a lot of the Vikings games, like they've either been really dominant or it's been like some kind of like hero ball. And last week was both, in all honesty. I mean, you got Sam Darnold throwing 5 touchdown passes and they dominated the game. So,
yeah,
interesting year for Minnesota.
Interesting situation too. What do they do next year?
Yeah, dude, I don't know. I think it maybe just depends on the type of money that Darnold asks for, in all honesty.
He's going to get paid. Whoever pays him, he's going to get paid.
Yeah, I think so. All right, I had Eagles on my mind. Let's talk about Panthers and Eagles game. Panthers lost to the Eagles. Again, Eagles are 11-2 as well. Bryce Young, man, he's starting to turn the corner, it seems like, a little bit. This last game, I thought he looked okay. I wouldn't say great, but better than what we've seen in the past. Maybe there's hope for him in Carolina.
There is. He is playing really good football lately. For the past few weeks, honestly, ever since he came back from being benched, he's been playing really good. And the Panthers overall are getting kind of frisky. They're starting to look like a team if you're a contender or you're fighting for a playoff spot, you don't want to see them right now. I believe they had a chance to win the game against the Eagles with a late drive, but they ended up not converting. And they just, what once looked like a lost team with a wasted number 1 overall pick suddenly looks like, hey, let's ride this out for next year and we might have something going here.
And they've got some winnable games throughout the rest of the year. They've got Cowboys next, Cardinals they could win. At Bucks will be hard. At Falcons, who knows with where Kirk Cousins at. So they've got some winnable games to round out this year. So, yeah, man, I'd like to see Bryce Young do well. I mean, he's a good kid. He was put in a really hard situation. So we'll see. All right, last topic before we talk about Chicago-related sports is the NBA. I've got some teams here that have surprised me, both good and bad. I think first and foremost, we need to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, man. They are the best team in basketball right now, 21-4. They had a ridiculous win streak going for a bit. I think it was like 11 or 12 games or something.
To start the year. I think it got up to like 14.
Yeah, they've looked awesome this year. Another team I like so far has been a little bit, I'll call it surprising. Let's call it surprising because they're really young, is the Houston Rockets. They're 17-8 right now. They've got a lot of really nice young pieces. They've got a couple vets in there too. Love that the Houston Rockets are back on the map because they've been shitty for quite a while. And then my last team, especially because of injuries, the Orlando Magic, man. The Orlando Magic are sitting, I think it's 17-10. Make sure I have this right.
You're right.
They're 17-10. They have had Paolo Banchero out for a while. They just lost, was it Mo Wagner or the other Wagner twin?
The other one.
Franz.
The better
Franz
one.
Wagner. Yeah. So they just lost him too, and they're still, I mean, they just beat the Suns the other night. They're still playing good ball. So Orlando Magic, that's my other team that's looked well. As far as teams that I haven't been impressed with, I don't need to go into it too deep here, but Philadelphia 76ers have looked like shit. I thought the Pacers would come out better than they have so far this year. Pacers are sitting at 10-15, not great for them. And the Suns, man, the Suns just seem like they're really, really inconsistent. They're 12-11 to start the year. There's rumors that maybe Jimmy Butler could potentially go to Phoenix. I personally wouldn't.
I don't know how they can afford it.
I think they'd probably have to give up Beal. I think they'd just swap like Beal for Butler, but
I'd maybe do that then.
The Suns, man, not looking that great, given a pretty good roster.
Yeah, I think I agree with all the teams that have kind of been, I guess, a little bit of surprises this year. Memphis is another one. They're 17-8. They didn't have John Morant for a chunk of the first half of the season, so for them to be in that position, it's pretty good for them.
That's my summer league squad, dog.
In terms of other teams that have been disappointed that we haven't touched on, Milwaukee Bucks 13-11. I know that's over 500, but not ideal. They're probably in a situation now where they're going to have to really think about that roster and maybe blowing it up and saying like, we got our one title with Giannis and maybe that was all we were meant to get. Timberwolves are 12-11. They've been struggling quite a bit too. Sacramento Kings 12-13. I think DeRozan has been out for a little bit, or at least he wasn't playing for a few games when I was tuning in to watch some of them. They've been a disappointment. And then, like you said, Indiana Pacers. Obviously Philly's probably number one, but the rest of them, I think you kind of nailed it. But just sluggish start for some teams that were maybe viewed as title contenders early on, and now it's like, what the heck are they going to do? I mean, you look at Philly; they have 15 losses already. Like, will they make the playoffs? Yeah, they'll have a chance, but their seeding's going to be rough.
Yeah, I mean, Eastern Conference might open up for them. I mean, especially depending on what Milwaukee does. I'm just looking at this right now, dude. This is actually kind of crazy. So Milwaukee, they've got Giannis, who's already 30, which kind of blows my mind. I didn't realize that. He's getting paid $48 million. They've got Damian Lillard, who's 34. He's getting paid $48 million. They've got Brook Lopez, who's 36, getting $23 million. And then Chris Middleton, who I think he just started playing. He's 33, and he's getting paid $31 million. So they've got a lot of money being paid out to guys all over the age of 30. So I think they got to do something with their roster. I think they probably will end up doing something with their roster, but just kind of crazy. They're on the wrong side of the hill. All right, let's dive into some Chicago topics now. We've got quite a bit to talk about for Chicago related sports. Luckily, that's not always the case. So, Sean, I'm gonna let you take the reins. Let's actually start with the Blackhawks and what's been going on over there.
A lot's been going on over there, Kevin. I'm glad you asked. They're following the trend of other Chicago sports teams and firing head coaches.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, the Blackhawks fired Luke Richardson. If you've been paying attention to the Blackhawks regularly, probably not a surprise they got rid of Richardson. Maybe a surprise on the timing, but it kind of seemed like it was starting to trend towards this way. They named Anders Sorenson their interim coach. He was the coach of the Iceford Rockhogs, which is the Blackhawks AHL affiliate. So Blackhawks have had a couple games with Sorensen already. I think they won one of them, lost another, and they're playing right now.
They're up 1-0 right now. I was just checking that.
Yep. Connor Bedard scored a goal. Speaking of Connor Bedard, I think a huge reason for this decision with Richardson was his Connor Bedard's regression has been less than
Yeah.
desirable
Yeah. It's
for
kind
this
of scary.
season. Um, he's putting up points, he's just not scoring goals, and I think you could see it in him if you watch the Blackhawks. He was very visibly frustrated. He went through like a 12 game goalless streak, and the night he broke it had looked like he just won the lottery. Like he just let out like a big sigh and was like, "Holy shit! Like I finally did it." And it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
Richardson's system in Chicago just seems to not be working. You know, he hasn't had the best resources to win with. They've tried giving him more talent on the roster. I don't think their roster is horrendous. It's not great, but I don't think it's horrendous. And it just this year it just hasn't worked. I feel like the team, yes, they should be in the mix for a high first round pick. I don't think they should be number one overall territory, in which is where they are and which they'll probably end up being. But now they have an opportunity with Anders Sorenson. They already said he's going to be the coach for the rest of the year. Rockford's been having some good developments with Blackhawks prospects this year. And now I think we're going to start to see some of those guys make their way up to the Blackhawks to play. Like you got Frank Nazar, Kevin Korchinski, who's already up, played in a game earlier this week, looks really good. So I think we're going to start seeing a mix of some of those Rockford guys getting a chance and starting to see, who might be sticking around or who we maybe need to season a little bit more and to kind of go from there. But I think it was the right move. I think it was a good move. The locker room after this happened, there were some comments about, they were saying like, you could kind of feel like things were getting rough around here and it was taking a toll on us. And as a GM, you never want that to be the case with the team you're running. So Kyle Davidson's shown he's not afraid to do things quick and do things swiftly. And he did that here with firing Luke Richardson, who, while he didn't work out as a Blackhawks head coach, I'm sure will catch on somewhere and he'll have another job. But now it opens up the door for the Blackhawks to be in the mix to find a new coach, which it sounds like they're committed to doing in the offseason. So,
Do you think Sorensen stands a chance, or do you think it's going to be like a
no,
Grady Sizemore White Sox type of situation?
no, I think if he stood a chance, they wouldn't have said he's going to be the coach for the rest of the year. They would have said he has an opportunity to be the coach. They were just like, he will be our coach for the rest of the year.
I respect it, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that's how teams should approach it, because a lot of times teams already know, like this is just the interim, and they
And
kind of sugarcoat it.
And not to mention, too, he is doing some good things with players in Rockford. There are going to be more players coming to Rockford. For example, Artem Levshinov is there for his first professional season.
Yeah.
He's important. And under Sorensen, that is, to the development of these guys. So I think with him doing good things in Rockford, probably is a good reason to not have him just come up. Let him keep developing with these younger guys and see if he's really found something and if he can help the Blackhawks in the future that way.
So he can't do too good because another team can't look at him if the Blackhawks miraculously just start playing well.
And I don't think they will. If anything, they might sell off a couple pieces once trade deadline rolls around. But
they do love their draft picks.
yeah. Gosh, I think they got 2 first rounders this year in a couple seconds. So, but yeah, I don't think there will be significant improvement. But I think maybe it'll be more entertaining, maybe a little bit more competitive, kind of breath of fresh air type of thing going on with the team. Might have some juice with a new guy in there, but not a guy I think that will be the guy long term.
Yeah. Hey, hello, Thomas Brown. Actually,
Yeah.
let's dive into that. So, man, we can't talk about the Bears without recapping the last game against the 49ers. What a shitstorm that game was. I really don't know what adjective to use to describe the last game, but dude, it got ugly quick. And I never really was pushing heavy for Thomas Brown to be a head coach. I think this game kind of shows you why maybe he's not ready for that step. I think eventually some team will pull the trigger on him because he really knows how to talk to people. I think he does a good job in the locker room. I just think that this job is too much for him right now. It does seem like the Bears locker room is in a better place. It seems like the players are a little bit happier, but man, like the offense looks like shit again after we saw some improvements from Thomas Brown being the OC, and he should have just stayed the OC.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that was kind of a mistake to change what they had going okay compared to what it was before. I mean,
watchable. I can come back for another week.
I mean, the first half of this game, there was literally nothing good. Not a single good thing happened. It was 24-0. I think Bears had like more punts than yards at half.
They had 4 yards of offense.
Yeah, and it's weird though because you look at second half, Caleb ended up playing pretty good, but he got sacked 7 times. It's like we can't just have some sort of balance. It's always he gets sacked a lot and plays well, or he just doesn't play well. It's like there's no in between. I firmly, since day one, have said I don't want Thomas Brown to be the head coach of the Bears. I don't care how much juice he brings, how different he is compared to what Eberflus had. This organization is a dumpster fire, and it has been for quite some time. And for them to think, hey, maybe our guy is here now, there's no way. If you really think that your answer is already in the organization, maybe your organization wouldn't be as shitty.
Yeah. Especially when at one point we were 4-2, and here we are sitting at 4-9. Like
a Hail Mary killed a team that bad, like that. There's no one here that's worth retaining at that point.
Yeah,
from a coaching perspective.
Who do you want as the next head coach?
I'm conflicted.
It's gonna be 2 names, isn't it?
I'm really conflicted here, Kevin. You and I have been talking about this for a while, and I firmly said I wanted Mike Vrabel. I said, that's the guy. Bears need an asshole. Bears need a culture builder. Bears need a guy that ownership will shit their pants every time he walks into their office. They really need that. The thing that I'm worried about with him is his ability to build out a staff. And everyone will quickly say, well, just hire a good offensive coordinator. We freaking can't, man. Like, we haven't been able to figure out OC for a long time. So that worries me that maybe they won't be able to figure that out either. Which leads me to the other name is Ben Johnson. The risk with him is he's never been a head coach. We don't know if he can be that culture guy. We don't know if he can lead a locker room. He might be able to. He might be a great culture guy. We just don't know it yet. So it's kind of a tough call if you ask me. I think Vrabel maybe has some more pros, but at the same time too, like, maybe we just try to do the young offensive guru guy with Caleb, and if it doesn't work out, then, they're both probably not working out, and at least we could say we tried that, as opposed to, granted, Vrabel's a different candidate, different style, different beast, but he also is kind of like the typical guy that Bears would hire, a defensive guy per se. So I'm kind of torn. I'm torn between the two.
I'll argue the other case. I will argue that I want Mike Vrabel to be my next head coach because the damn guy knows how to command a team and knows how to command a locker room. I also think Bill Belichick did us a major favor today talking about how attractive the Chicago Bears job is. I think at some point we have to get the OC right. And if we're going to hire a guy like Mike Vrabel, something tells me he's going to make sure we get it right. Like, I just have so much trust in Mike Vrabel as a head coach because when you think about our current issue, aside from, an inconsistent defense now who seems like they're just going to be shitty, the problem is leadership in the locker room, right? And that's exactly one of Mike Vrabel's biggest advantages as a head coach. We've got captains everywhere, dude. We've got Jalen Johnson. We've got who's our line? Tremaine Edmonds. We've got Caleb Williams. We've got DJ Moore. We've got leadership everywhere. Well, guess what? Nobody's doing shit except maybe Jalen Johnson. And if you hire a guy like Mike Vrabel, he's not going to tolerate any of the bullshit, and he's going to be able to get this locker room under control. Now, to your point, we got to nail the offensive coordinator. We have to nail it. That is the most important part of hiring Mike Vrabel. But I just feel like with how, I don't want to say good, how encouraging Caleb Williams looks given all the shit he's been through this year, I think it's going to be a really attractive job. So I think
It will be
a lot of people who are interested.
It will be. There's no doubt about that. I just worry too with Vrabel. Like his offenses in Tennessee were tough. They were not good offenses. Like they were struggling to put up 17 points in a game and things like that. And that's when they had Tannehill playing well. Granted, they could have had better options, but I mean, you had Tannehill and Derrick Henry there. But like you're saying, locker room, being a player's coach, being able to lead a group, he checks off all those boxes. It's just the big question mark, which the Bears always have. It's who can run the offense and who can do it well.
Like Ben Johnson, can you just be our OC too? Like, can we just throw you a stupid amount of money to be our OC too? It's never going to happen, but like, God, that would be amazing.
No. I think Ben Johnson's going to get a head coaching job this time around, whether it's in Chicago or New Orleans could be intriguing to him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
And who knows what else opens up too? Like it could be other jobs,
Let's do before we move on to the next sport, let's do rapid fire. We forgot to make our picks for NFL this week, so we'll just do quick rapid fire. I've got the games pulled up here. So Rams and 49ers are underway. It's a 3-0 game, so we can still pick this. Who do you have?
I'll take the Rams, even though they're losing.
Yeah, I do too. Chiefs and Browns.
Chiefs.
Duh, that's easy. Bengals and Titans. Kind of interesting because Bengals are 5-10.
Yeah, I'll take Cincy.
I think they're desperate for a win. I mean, Joe Burrow still has 33 touchdowns, 6 picks. So, Commanders and Saints.
Commanders. No Derek Carr. Lots of problems.
Yep. Ravens and Giants. Pretty easy one there too.
Ravens. Yeah.
Cowboys and Panthers.
I'm going to take the Panthers.
I think so too. Honestly, the Cowboys have been playing pretty decent without Dak, but I'll take the Panthers.
They have been. But I like the Panthers there.
Battle of 3-10, baby. Jets and Jaguars.
Jets will take that one. Mac Jones has to play football. That's almost an automatic loss.
Mac Jones is trash. Your Dolphins and the Texans.
My Dolphins. Stop it. I'm going to take the Texans.
I'm going to take the Dolphins.
All right.
We've got Colts and Broncos. Wow, there's a lot of just really mid games this year or this week.
No, well, wait till we get through the afternoon slate. They're all at 3:25. Oh. If it wasn't in Denver, I would go Colts, but because it's in Denver, I'm going Denver.
Denver's playing sneaky good ball. Their defense is also balling out lately. Bills and Lions. Okay, yeah, I see it now.
Josh Allen revenge game. After losing last week, he's going to do it. He's going to will him to victory.
Listen, if it's Josh Allen against Jared Goff, I'm going to take Josh Allen every time. That's why I'm taking the Bills here. Steelers and Eagles in Philly.
I got Eagles.
I think so too. I think if it was in Pittsburgh, I'd take the Steelers, but I'm going to take the Eagles.
No George Pickens for Pittsburgh too, so.
Patriots and Cardinals in Glendale, Arizona.
I think the Patriots will win that game.
I'm going to take the Cardinals. They're desperate for a win. Buccaneers and Chargers.
Bolt up.
Yeah, Chargers. It's a home game for them too. Oh, God. Why do we have to do this? Packers and Seahawks. Tie.
It's disgusting.
Tie.
That's a disgusting matchup. I'll go Seattle.
Yeah, I guess. And then there's 2 Monday night games. So we'll leave the Bears for last. Falcons and Raiders.
Falcons.
Yeah. Bears and Vikings in Minneapolis. Obviously, I think we're both going to take the Vikings here. I kind of feel a frisky game coming from the Bears, and they tend to play the Vikings pretty well, but I still think it's the Vikings.
I do think it'll be close, but I think Minnesota will win. If anything, the Bears have proven they can play their division well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's jump into White Sox talk. Winter meetings recap here, dude. There's some pretty interesting storylines. So Chris Getz, he's been pretty transparent with the media, which I appreciate. He did announce that they were retaining a lot of the staff under the new head coach, Will Venable. I have mixed reactions here. I don't love bringing people forward from last year, but at the same time, I don't know why I have trust in Will Venable, like actually being able to like know whether or not he's got a good staff around him. So I think I'm just on the wait and see train here.
Yeah, I think from a pitching perspective, that was about one of the only things that went right for the White Sox last year. So I would understand retaining some people from that department. The hitting coach, Marcus Thames.
Yeah.
When you got
Yeah.
the worst team in modern MLB history that was really struggling to hit home runs, I just feel like maybe that's not going to work out. But I guess we'll wait and see. Who knows?
Isn't oh no, the assistant hitting coach is Joel McKeithen. I was gonna say I thought it was Walker McKibben, but he's the bench coach.
Mhm.
Maybe he'll help with that. I know he was highly regarded from Milwaukee, so who knows? The Sox signed Mike Tauchman to a major league deal. Obviously, it's not a huge splash. There's no surprise there. The Sox were never going to make a huge splash, but I think it's a good move for them. I mean, when you look at WAR, I think he would have had the highest WAR on our entire roster last year. Um, it fills a hole in right field. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, left-handed bat. He gets on base. Local kid from Palatine. Not a sexy move, but a necessary one. They're going to have some holes in the outfield. So Talkman's a guy that I don't know if he'll be playing every day, but I mean he's not a bad player. So he'll he'll do pretty good on the White Sox. So yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it's fine. And then the big one, Sox traded Garrett Crochet to the Red Sox for Kyle Teal, Braden Montgomery, which they did a lot of homework on during the draft, Chase, I think it's pronounced Mydroth, and then Winkleman Gonzalez, which I'm here for that guy's name alone. I don't even care if he's good.
Yeah, yeah. Move that was looking like it was going to happen at some point, and it was looking like it was going to happen last trade deadline. Never did. Chris Getz waited, and him waiting paid off. I think this is a pretty damn good return for the White Sox. From an MLB pipeline top 100 perspective, the White Sox got Kyle Teal, who's the 25th overall prospect in baseball, Braden Montgomery, who's the 54th overall prospect in baseball, and then organizationally, Meadroth slots in at 13th best prospect in the White Sox organization, with Winkleman Gonzalez as 14th best.
And
Um,
Braden Montgomery is at 5, and Kyle Teal's actually at 2. So every
yep,
single piece they got is a top 15 prospect for them, and they already had a pretty decent farm system. I wouldn't say great, but pretty decent farm system. So
yep,
pretty nice return. I think we're just going to keep getting more and more catchers, dude. I think our whole field is just going to be filled with nothing but catchers at this rate. If we trade Luis Robert, maybe we'll just get 2 catchers and just have nothing but catchers out there and left-hand
yeah,
pitchers.
yeah. I I definitely think Kyle Teal will be the catcher of the future for the White Sox. He's already knocking on the door of the MLB. He's better defensively than guys like Edgar Caro that they have in the organization. So I think Teal, it's going to be his job to lose. It's going to be weird because they're probably going to add a catcher at the major league level, I would guess, this offseason because they do need to fill a gap there. Um, so people might be like, well, what the heck? You just traded for Kyle Teal. Why are you adding a catcher? They need one. Um, but I don't know if this is a hot take necessarily, but I do think like when you look at this trade, Obviously, Kyle Teal is the headliner, but I actually think Braden Montgomery will end up being the headliner. You're talking about a guy who he was a two-way player at Stanford and then ended up transferring to Texas A&M, tore up the Pac-12, tore up the SEC, switch hitting outfielder. He can play every outfield spot. He's 6'2". The guy's just an absolute athletic unit. I think he's going to be a very, very, very good Major League Baseball player. One who there is a good chance the White Sox would have drafted him had he not broke his foot at the end of last season. They were very interested in him, and for the record, they were interested in Kyle Teal too. They missed him by one pick when Teal went in the draft. Not saying that they would have taken him if he was there, but I do know they were interested in Teal back then as well. But Braden Montgomery, he's just a stud. He's a very well-rounded player, and I think at the end of the day, when we look back on this trade 5 years from now, people are going to be like, "Oh, Braden Montgomery was actually the best player out of that package," which isn't to put a knock on Kyle Teal. I think he'll be a very good MLB player too, but I just think from a tools perspective, Braden Montgomery is a very good get for the White Sox and someone they obviously wanted and went back to getting. So good for them, and I'm happy with the package they got back.
Yeah, I think so, especially considering like when you think about it, Crochet only has 1 year of starting pitching under his belt. He's going to be a great pitcher. I'm not saying anything bad about the guy, but like he has winning pedigree. He has really disgusting stuff. I mean, he could very well be top 3 pitcher in the MLB, but like he still only had 1 year of starting experience under his belt. So to get that kind of return, honestly, it was really nice. But at the same time, like when these pitchers were being shoveled money like they are right now, and his contract is as cheap as it is, you got to get the prospects like this in return, or else you're shooting yourself in the foot. So really nice job by Chris Getz. I know the White Sox leadership got a lot of grief when Chris Getz was hired. I will say right now, I feel like pretty good about what Chris Getz has done. I won't say great. I won't say he's the long-term plan for leading the White Sox, but he hasn't disappointed yet so far is the best I could explain it. So we'll see what else he's got up his sleeve. We're probably going to have another really rough season. I think Luis Robert will be traded either this offseason or at the trade deadline, and we'll see what kind of return we get for him. So last team, the Chicago Bulls. Sean, you've probably watched more Bulls than I have this year. I've mostly just like box score watched. I've seen, obviously, Mattis is starting to really come into his own. He's starting to feel really confident out there. You can just see like he has no hesitation with putting up shots. He has no hesitation with driving to the lane. He's put down a couple really nasty dunks. So I've loved what I've seen from him. Zach LaVine looks to be pretty fresh out there again. He looks to be healthy. What have you noticed?
I think the biggest takeaway from the Bulls season this far is your boy Nikola Vucevic,
dude, all-star,
is playing some unbelievable basketball, and it's getting to the point where he might get the Bulls something in a trade. So, he's averaging 21 points and about 10 rebounds per game. So yeah, he's probably been their best player this year. Levine's playing pretty good too. Coming off his injury last year, obviously. I like what I've seen from Josh Giddey too. He's struggled, I feel like, with scoring at a good clip, but overall, just what he brings to the table has been nice. Ayo Dosunmu has been having a pretty good year for the Bulls.
Yeah, dude, he's looked nice. He deserves a lot of credit. He's looked really good this year.
Yep, he's taken a starting role with some of the injuries they've had, and he's just kind of flourished in that role recently. And then kind of looking at it, well, one more positive I think is Jalen Smith's been awesome off the bench. I've been really impressed with him. I like what he's bringing to the team. And I think they got him for 2 more years, so that's going to look like a pretty good bench piece for them.
Goggles gang, baby.
Yeah, Goggles McGee over here. And then just kind of, the unfortunate parts of the Bulls season. Kobe White's been struggling. He's been a little inconsistent. Right now, he's averaging 18 points a game, which on paper that's pretty good, but just been struggling. I feel like he hasn't really been quite able to be as consistent as he wants to be. And Patrick Williams getting hurt again. Very unfortunate. For a few games right before he got hurt, he was starting to play really, really good basketball, and we were seeing a guy who was getting the rock, backing people down, driving to the hoop. I was like, if this is what he's about to be, then he's finally the player we've been waiting years for. And then he ends up getting hurt. So, not quite sure what to think of him. Health is becoming probably the biggest issue. And now I feel like if he starts playing well, they're just probably going to look to trade him and get rid of that contract. But yeah, it's kind of been tough. But yeah, with Matis Buzelis too, I know you mentioned him. He's starting to get an expanded role with P. Will being out, and he's been doing good. I'm excited about him and hoping he continues to see some extended minutes. I think at this point, my rookie of the year prediction for him is probably wrong, but we're starting to see a guy that's getting more minutes and earning more minutes, which I thought he would have done right away, but apparently they just didn't want to play him early on in the season.
Hey man, if nothing else, he's providing highlights, right? Patrick Williams just got paid, but like, hey, what's your buyout, homie? Because you ain't looking good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be real interesting in the second half of this year because I think Levine is still going to be traded. I think Vooch, with the way he's playing, I think he may actually have quite a few suitors at the trade deadline. So that opens up for a lot of younger guys to get some playing time. You might even see our boy Adama Sanogo get some playing time here. But it's just like, we got to turn that page, and Levine and Vooch are going to be elsewhere, hopefully sooner rather than later. So then, you get to see more out of guys like Buzelis. You'll get to see more out of guys like Jalen Smith, maybe even like Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry, and see what the future of this team looks like. So as far as Chicago topics go, I think that's about it, dude. That about wraps up this podcast, unless you've got anything else you wanted to dive into.
I got nada. I emptied the clip today.
All right, we were due, man. We had to. We're feeling
Yep.
fresh, and we were due for an episode here. I think it was a little over a month. So thanks, y'all, for staying patient with us. We appreciate it. We will be back again next week with another episode. Christmas time, we haven't figured out yet, so we'll let you know on next week's episode. But as always, thanks for hanging out. Feel free to like, share, shoot us a message. Let us know what you want us to talk about, and we will see y'all in a week. Take care.